Hi, I'm Billy Hamilton-Stent, the Chief Strategy Officer at Publicis Pro. I'm here to tell you about an event that we hosted last week and also introduce you to a really cool conversation that I had with Mimi Turner, the Head of Marketplace Innovation at LinkedIn. The event itself and the conversation are about a big topic, AI and generative engine optimization, how companies are changing the way that they figure out what the vendor world, what the market is doing and inform their buying decisions. The event itself was really useful. We had lots of great data and insights about trends and how B2B buyers are prioritizing or thinking about AI and geo. We also had a great product demo from our partners, Digitas within Group, who showed us a product called Model Site, which helps our clients to figure out where they sit in this new and emerging world, how companies are discovering them and what they can do to optimize that experience. The conversation with Mimi, which was really interesting, started off talking just about what's happening with 2026 and what we can do and what we think the big trends are for B2B marketers, but very quickly got into the subject of large language models and AI discovery. The guys at LinkedIn are very interested in this idea of buyability and what makes businesses more viable. And it seems that there is a moment now where, you know, brand and buyability and being more authentic and authoritative with what you do with your marketing is being mirrored in what we need to do to be more discoverable and more relevant in the world of AI search. So that conversation is about to follow. It was really great. Also just to chat about, you know, how we as people are now relating to technology. So a bit about man, a bit about machine, and a bit about Mimi. Hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it.
Mimi, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We're really excited to have you here. Before we get into this, how are you? How's Strix?
Well, Billy, lovely to see you again. I always feel like when we do a conversation together that we say all sorts of stuff that I didn't mean to say, and potentially career-ending stuff. So stay tuned, obviously, for that. But doing well. Can't believe that time is going so quickly, and happy to see you again, and excited. What will happen today? Nobody knows.
I think that's the best way, though, right? That's what people listen for. The tangential thought, you know, the sidebar. I think that's what podcasts are really about. So yeah, it's great to have you here and welcome. When we're looking ahead into 2026, what do you see over the last 12 months that you think are, you know, trends that are going to become more kind of robust and start to change how we're, you know, thinking about marketing strategy or marketing activities overall?
I'd say two things. One is, I think we are going to start to be able to understand what makes things buyable, as opposed to what generates marketing signals that market to attribution models. What actually makes things buyable is a separate, distinct question from that. And I think that we're going to understand that it is really about influencing the buyer group from the companies that you really care about to make a decision, and influence works in a collective way rather than an individual way. I think that is simply we just have that is a model that we can move towards without doing that much different, because most of it is stuff that we do all along. It's just a kind of mic drop moment of recognizing that with a few things that we can do now, which is make our brand strategy more validation-oriented, recommendation-oriented. In B2B, that is the highest order of confidence, I think, one thing. And I think the other thing is that, you know, the LLM acceleration has been extraordinarily tough for B2B marketers whose signal base is like the lights are going out in the signals that we depended on. And that's a very disorienting sensation. It's kind of like you're flying and then you hit turbulence and you lose altitude. And it's like, wow, the instruments are all over the place. And we know that there's a tipping point. It's not like when 100% of the signals go out, we have to change. We know that when 20 to 30% of the signal are lost, something is different. So that's felt like a tremendous apprehension for us. But I do think that emerging in the AI discoverability, we're going to find some reassuring things that democratize advantage in the search for in LLMs, which is that the very things that drive the human viability behavior that, that people want to make decisions on, that kind of data is what AI LLMs are trained on. They're trained on understanding the surface area of brands that is expert-led, authoritative, valued, consistent, yes, well-structured, well-tagged, well-organized within the site, refreshed, and those kinds of things. But the human things that humans look to in order to make that final part of the buying decision is also how LLMs prioritize content that is relevant to the search process that users now use, which replaces the early stage discovery that we've been used to. And so even though we don't see it, it's kind of compressed and maybe somewhat invisible, actually it is mappable through and actually gets us closer to what buyers are really looking for. Tell me the vendor that sells SaaS CRM system to a SaaS business that has 20,000 employees and has to deal with heavy financial regulation in XYZ countries. The answers are who did it, like who does that? You're automatically looking for someone who does it. Like, show me that they know how to do this. Those are things that marketers, they're entry points that you can get into that marketers are built to understand.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. We're seeing such a lot of that with our clients right now in terms of, I mean, the story's unfolding as with anything to do with AI, but the, classic example is, this year we've seen a 50% reduction in our search generated leads, classic
Yes.
problem. And
Yes.
it's to do with this shift towards, models being a default and increasingly more sophisticated default that people are using to just use discovery. Very interesting as well that I think it applies much more to B2B where you do have more nuanced, detailed, sophisticated discovery processes, right? And then they're multidimensional. We've already processed. There might be 2 or 3 different flavors of people in a business looking to understand more about a topic, a particular category, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And so it's a bit of a kind of, it is a mic drop moment because you're confronted with 2 things. You're confronted with an empirical truth where you have to change a behavior, and then an emerging technology that you're trying to understand to affect that, and resolve it. But I love this idea that, in the mechanistic origin of the models, you're actually getting something that's forcing the organizations to just be more kind of human and more authoritative and better at what they do. Because, as you say, it's changing, right? Those queries change.
Yeah.
You're forced to, you might even say at a push, you're forced to grow up a bit. You just
I would never say that,
see that
but
bigger picture.
I wanted to be clear to all the lawyers that it was Billy who said that, not me. But yeah, I wouldn't. but I mean, we were talking also about what makes organizations change, because that is the cultural conversation that underpins what businesses do. And it would be lovely if it were just having a great idea. I think that was your point a bit earlier on, like having a great idea is not enough to change this. You know what changes things? Like Harold Wilson said, events, dear boy, events change things. When events change, even the reluctant have to embed the idea that the future is not going to resemble the past. And that is the innovation question. Like, if the future is the same as the past, nobody needs to do anything different. Like, we just do what works in the past. All our data is super helpful, but we're at an epoch-changing moment, and I think it's been very difficult to know how to enter that. Like, what do you do? But I think that we could stand on the verge of a world where there is a much greater democratization in the ability to build human-first, behavioral-oriented strategies. And that does disrupt the laws of strategy that we've had, which is, you could, Peter Drucker again, you have to be either the biggest or the cheapest to win, right? To be the big, that's what you've got to do. But now I think that we'll see an environment where slowly, if you really understand your competitive set, to be the most liked, most trusted, most recommended, most culturally present vendor within the circle that is relevant to you. So within the 1,000 accounts, not the universe, but the 1,000 accounts that matter to you. That is what winning will look like. And in B2B, we have more of the tools, maybe not all the tools, but we have more of the tools, more of the capabilities, and a giant new imagination machine that will help us understand what our customers want to do and build a brand reputational surface area around that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's so nice as well to just think about that so much of what is talked about with AI and these rapid advancements has a shadow attached. It has this kind of fear, uncertainty and doubt, which is understandable, particularly at a human level. But I think, maybe what we're saying here is there's an increased richness and an increased quality ahead for both the customer and the vendor, driven by these technologies. So the human element of what we do, to just get from one day to the next as individuals or companies can get richer, and I think in getting richer, that there might be new roles, new functions, new capabilities even in the marketing realm that are yet to be fully, fully realized, that will be part of that change. Yes. And so it's nice to be able to,
I don't necessarily, so I'm as surprised as anybody that I'm arriving at what is a thesis. 2026 will tell us whether it happens or not, as an AI optimist, because whenever people are talking about training AI human robots to do ironing on YouTube, I start to think, what I need to do is to buy a compound and build a fence around that.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel I'm not always an AI optimist, but I think this idea of democratization of matching human customer needs, and in B2B, those needs are more human because they are higher risk. The risk to my career, if I make a decision that makes my boss look bad, is much worse than the risk to my bank balance of buying some sort of face cream sequencing thing that didn't work. Worst is I just looked the way I looked. In scenario A. Scenario B, my boss looks bad, I look bad, the team don't like me. These are so we are much more humanly driven by those incentives in B2B than in B2C. So to have an opportunity open up, I think is exciting. And I really think that B2B marketing is the arena in which tremendous economic growth is defined.
Agree. I think that's a really optimistic point on which to draw us to a close. It's been great speaking to you, Mimi, and I genuinely feel buoyed about 2026, even with the the AI shadow as we just discussed around us. But yeah, thank you so much. I don't know if you have any closing thoughts. I think that just to have this conversation about behaviour, about culture, and these more considered dimensions of what's often just considered to be, the emotion and human story we need to tell in marketing. I hope that, our listeners find it useful.
I think my closing thought is, no idea whether this will happen, but wouldn't it be nice if, in tandem with a decision and scenario and context building machine, which is badged as very technological, but feels very other than technological. It doesn't feel like your database coding. Wouldn't it be amazing if that led to a renaissance of the human condition of value, trust, integrity, transparency, validation? Wouldn't a renaissance in that space be an exciting place to be? That's my final.
That'd be great. That is a great closing point. So let's do it. Let's put it on the agenda. We'll come back at the end of 2026 and see how we're getting on.
Yes.
Okay, Mimi, thanks so much. I wish you a good day.
Thanks, Billy.
So a big thanks to Mimi for joining us in that conversation, giving us, a human perspective on the future of AI and B2B search. It's a big trend. It's going to keep evolving. Stay tuned for further insights and conversation around this really important topic. Let's keep the conversation moving. And, maybe just in the comments to make this a bit more fun, in 2026, what do you think geo success is going to be enabled by? Geo success will be enabled by... Finish off the sentence. Look forward to seeing you in the untrended pods that are just about to drop. And yeah, thanks for coming. Bye.